Hey guys, it's Ethan. I just want to give you guys a quick note before we start the episode. So first off, this is the last episode of 2021. As you guys know, that we are doing the thing now where each, season of Style and Direction is just going to be 3 months of episodes every 2 weeks, and then on the fourth month, we will be taking a break. So kind of like a quarterly kind of a thing, just to keep things fresh and so we don't burn ourselves out. So this is the last one. Don't be surprised if you don't hear anything from us in December, other than our weekly streams and our bonus episode, which is fully available for patrons. So you'll still get a bonus episode in December, or if you're not paying for it, you'll get a preview of that bonus episode. The other thing is that in the episode about Asian Americans and being into, menswear as a child of immigrants, everything like that, I referred to a lot of things as, or as a general term, I referred to Asian hyphenates. And my girlfriend has kind of shown me this kind of interesting conscious style guide where, people are trying to move away from referring to Asians as, or, immigrants and everything as Asian hyphenates. The quote here says, "The hyphens serve to divide even if they are meant to connect. Their use in racial and ethnic identifiers can connote an otherness, a sense that people of color are somehow not fully citizens or fully American, or in Aldous' case, who is a guest on the podcast, fully Canadian." So just want to point that out as something interesting. Apologize for not having done as much research on this, or just kind of using hyphenates as a catch-all term. I do talk about this otherness in the essay that comes with this episode. So of course, like always, the episode has a discussion with me, Spencer, and now featuring producer MJ, Aldous, and Jason. And then my essay kind of focuses more on my own introspection on this idea about identity and, kind of what it means to be into menswear and being, a second generation Asian American without the hyphenate. So just want to put that out there before we start the episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hello, baby. Hello everyone, welcome to Style and Direction, a Menswear podcast without the stuffiness. I am your host, Ethan M. Wong.
I'm your other host, Spencer.
And we've also got...
We've got a lot of guests today.
We got a lot. Well, one of them isn't really a guest. He's actually been here. He's in there every single time we record. Just, he's not tied in a corner, because that's... what's his name? No, Dan Harmon? Yeah, it's Dan Harmon who's usually tied in the corner. Yeah,
I thought it was just a cage.
I don't know. We got him. We lost the cage.
we lost the cage.
He's out of the box.
We lost the cage. Well, he's out of his mind. We just got him in there making Rick and Morty for us.
Yeah, we've seen season 7, guys. It'll blow your fucking brains out.
We wrote it. We wrote it. Everything. Yeah, it's like a misery situation.
Yeah, it'll be like Succession or something. They'll have like some menswear content. It'll be like, Jerry, come on, put on your fucking Shell Cordovan shoes, bitch. Burp or whatever. Yeah. Give it up for producer MJ, by the way. Welcome to the podcast. Woo! on the main line here. We've also got Jason Sandagon of Mad King George.
Ya boy.
Clap, clap, clap. What if every time we said clap, 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 you got the clap?
Oh
like
my God,
STD wise, like you
what a
felt
power,
it happen.
right? What a power.
What a power!
That's my hero quirk.
Yeah. Wait, is that what you want? Or would you be giving it to other people?
So am I getting it, or am I giving it every time? Like,
no, I said every time you clap, you felt yourself getting the clap.
My superpower is I get every disease. My superpower is that I'm HIV positive.
Right.
Every time I clap, I infect myself.
Oh my! Well, it's like the Twitter thread. It was like, oh, you get a superpower, but then someone else gets to pick your weakness, and one person was like, oh, I can fly, and it's like the weakness was you have prostate cancer.
Oh no,
it's a bad weakness. Can't fly away from that.
No, you can't. No, well, Icarus did because he died.
That's how you fly
consider
away.
flying away from prostate cancer.
That's
then
right.
I guess
Icarus. That's like that's a moral, like that's what you're supposed to do. Like he's the good guy in the story. It's like all about. It's like Yeah, well, no. I mean, I'm just saying we're not on stream. We can say whatever the hell we
Let's
want.
edit it out, right?
We're gonna hit the R. We're gonna hit the R
Hit
word.
the R word.
No.
Rusty.
Also, by the way, we've got Aldous Troy with us. Say hi, Aldous.
Hi, Aldous.
Yeah,
Nice,
thank you.
classic.
Say it.
I did say it. Yeah.
He understood the assignment.
Yeah. Glad.
I bet Kiyoshi
As
wants
the
to turn
teens
this off
say.
like right now, right? Like he's like skip.
I mean, we're not even.
What if every
5
time he
minutes
got the
in,
skip?
so-
What?
We got the skip.
Yeah, what STD would the skip be?
What?
Well, That's a good question.
Wait,
Maybe it's like
what's the clap? Gonorrhea?
Yes.
yeah. I think yeah.
And what does that? No, okay.
So
I
the
only
clap-
have
okay.
I only have safe sex. I've never had an STD. I don't know what the symptoms of gonorrhea is.
So it is called the clap
Don't
because
Google
in
it.
order to get the like pus out, doctors would just like clap it.
Oh my
Just
god.
take their like
That's
this is real.
That's a nice image.
I mean, unless this is like a urban legend that I read, but that is a thing that I
Oh my
read.
god.
Sounds like a
Well,
home remedy.
More like a
rather
thing
than
you
a-
clap.
Yeah.
It's a thing that I
It's just a
clap.
thing I clap.
So the skip. How would you? What symptom would you think that you
It's
have to
just
skip?
sometimes you try to come or you try to pee and it just doesn't happen until next time.
Until next time.
So you're,
there's-
you're
there's
thinking
a-
of like
there's
an
a skip
Uno
in that
skip.
street,
You're like an
you know.
Uno. I was like, oh man, I got so much pus. I gotta skip to like shake it out. You know, like
You gotta
what?
skip to do it.
yeah. Only if if you're really he's really smug.
That's
smudgeness.
bad.
I think this.
Shut out the office.
Yeah. 'Cause this really
Um,
works in for our conversation today.
Yeah. So far,
Yeah,
the
so-
first 5 minutes of the menswear part of this menswear discussion has gone quite well, I think.
It hasn't gotten. I wouldn't say it's any better than the other ones.
That's true.
But hey, speaking of the other ones, today's episode is about.
We are. I mean, it's much shorter than the other ones.
Yeah. That's racist.
Oh, okay.
You can,
Asian. Hey,
you
I
get-
got one thing to say to you, Spencer. Yao Ming. That's right. What up?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
He is very tall.
Okay.
And Henry Golding's I think kind of tall, right? He's like 6'2".
I don't know.
I'm
his
5'7"
height.
and
I
a
don't know many
half,
people's
and that's
heights.
pretty tall
The-
for
the-
a Filipino.
I mean,
Okay.
I can't think. Nope. I knew even my friend Scott, who I've alluded to in previous podcasts, he's like 6 feet tall. So
Yeah.
I've like only known
Okay,
Filipino
listen,
tall Filipino
I'm
people,
actually
not Filipino tall
my
people.
dad is 6'2", and his dad was 6'3", so I'm
What
the
happened to
shortest
You're making
actually
the
of the
crowd.
lineage of Filipinos in my family. So I don't know what I'm fucking talking about. He was a professional basketball player.
Well, what we are going to talk about today is, I would say Asian Americans, but Aldous is not American. He's an Asian Canadian. I would kind of conjecture, right? That kind of makes
American.
sense.
You
mean,
wouldn't have
it's-
to conjecture
it's
it's a
just-
fact.
Yeah,
I have a dual
He doesn't-
Canadian
he doesn't
citizenship.
live
I'm
in
gonna be
America.
honest. Asian Canadian doesn't have the same ring to it as Asian American.
Yeah,
Is it because it's
Asian,
not
that's why we're-
alliterative?
Yeah, it
that
doesn't.
way?
It doesn't
Yeah.
flow. Has no flow to it. Asian Canadian.
we are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we've been talking. If you're a member of the Patreon Discord, you'll know that we've been talking about representation, BIPOCs in Menswear. And I thought, hey, why don't we get a little bit deeper? Because even though the Discord is still diverse, a lot of the people that I'm friends with, I mean, 2 out of the 3 of the people who make this podcast happen are Asian American. Hey, baby. So I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. Maybe talk about how, the lack of Asian or Asian American representation in menswear, whether it's through branding, whether it's as influencers, whether it's working in the industry, maybe why native Asians, why there's a big representation of like Japan brands and Chinese tailors and even Filipino brands and everything. But what is it about, like, in our own, I guess not adopted home country, I was born here, but, in this country that we are, why is there not a lot of us in our own community,
Right.
in the menswear community?
Yeah.
So
And
So
I'm
we-
mostly along for the ride.
that's right.
Occasionally.
Just to be clear,
Occasionally, if you
I didn't include Spencer in some of the group chats until Aldous was like, "Is Spencer coming?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I never really asked. I should like." I kind of was like, I don't know what he would say, but I think it's good that he's here.
From the outside looking in.
Yeah,
that's what
we
he's
need
here
to have
for.
Yeah.
the white perspective.
through the looking glass.
There you
Doing
go.
the waving through a window.
Yeah. I'm
so-
just like Dear Evan Peters.
Yeah.
Dead? Wait, no, he didn't. He's not the one who died.
No, he's not. His
The other one.
Other one. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
The kick-ass guy. I'm talking about
Yeah.
how Quicksilver's dead. Spoilers
Spoiler
for
alert.
Age of Ultron, by the way.
Oh my god.
I know.
You're
But hey,
kidding me.
Oh, no.
let's talk about kind of our background first. So, I'm Ethan. If you don't know, like if you can't, if you
We
for-
started
had no
Ethan.
idea.
I'm
Yeah.
saying okay. To be clear, I've listened to a couple of new podcasts lately, like as I'm working out, and they like after like the first episode, they just stop introducing themselves, like
Well,
who
we
they are.
introduced ourselves at the
Yeah.
top.
Well, I'm just saying, what if someone's first episode they forgot which one Ethan was, right? So I'm the one talking. I'm Ethan. I am half Filipino, half Chinese. I was born here in the United States, but my dad, who is Chinese, was born in the Philippines. So culturally, I feel full Filipino. So that's my background. MJ, you are.
I am full Filipino, although my last name is kind of like a deviation of Spanish name, I guess.
What is it
Last
supposed to
name,
be?
last name is Kintanar. Yeah, that's like the closest
okay.
thing because apparently it's not like a Filipino like native last name. So, another sign of being full Filipino though. is
Right.
Spanish
Yeah,
last
Your
name.
yeah, look,
Spanish
yeah.
last
So
name.
if you
I
don't
was
know,
gonna say.
Quintana, right, is Q-U-I, and MJ's
Yeah.
is Kintanar, like spelled with like a K. It's like they
Yeah.
heard it and they're like, okay, well, here's how I
Hey,
spell
that's
it.
a cool last
with-
name. I'll
with,
take that.
with the
Yeah.
Western,
Yeah.
or I guess
You can have it if you marry
We'll
him.
steal it. Yeah.
Phoenician.
We'll steal it back from the Spanish.
Yeah, I wonder what Magnaye is. Like Magnaye, like that sounds kind of native to me.
Yeah,
But
that
I don't-
pretty much. I'm pretty sure that's.
That's what
Like-
they. By the way, if you didn't know what the M stood for, that's what my M. It's not a secret. It's like that's just
That's
like
not, that's what my M stands for.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mine.
not mine.
I
Ethan's.
thought it was just a symbol that meant hope.
No, it's Wombo, but it's upside down.
It's my home world. Jason, your background?
Yeah, I'm Jason Sandagon. I'm a quarter Filipino and then a bunch of white.
A
Just
bunch.
like real mishmash, of white.
Well,
Yeah.
today you're just gonna forget.
Right.
about
Today
that
we're gonna
part.
pretend that I'm not.
Aldous?
Well, I'm full Chinese. I was born in Hong Kong. I did go to international schools though, so private schools. It's essentially like growing up abroad without going abroad. So although I am full Chinese and I spent my formative years in Hong Kong, I don't really know what I am. I'm not. I guess I feel mostly Canadian now, but neither here nor there, in a lot of respects.
That sounds like the Asian diaspora to me, man.
That's a
Either-
good
you know,
preview for what's to come in a few.
Yeah. Well, and Spencer, you're white.
What kind of white are you, Spencer? Let's
I'm
do
white.
23 and me on Spencer.
Moving on.
I've
Okay,
never
well-
done.
well, let's-
I've never done 23andMe. I was gonna ask you guys if any of you have done that, but I also am not sure if that's like a mostly white person thing.
I've heard it's not very good for
It's
Asians.
gonna tell me that I'm Filipino.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 23. Ancestry.com is like maybe more
yeah. Okay.
universal.
That makes more sense to me as opposed to figuring
Yeah.
out what I already kind of know about myself.
Right.
Well, here
You can find out how much caveman DNA you have, and then the government can just like have your DNA, which I think is pretty cool.
Will I
Right.
get my own show?
They already have it at this point.
you will get your own show. Pilot's gonna be set in Georgia, but the rest
And
of the
Nick
show will
Kroll
be set
will
in San
be in it.
Diego. Yeah.
Who wouldn't be? You know what I'm saying? Well, like let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be like I guess second gen. Like we're not maybe all this is a little bit different because you've actually like immigrated to like another country. But like for me, MJ and Jason and I, like we're born here,
Born and bred.
in America. That's right, born.
Bruce
Born in the
Springsteen right here,
USA,
born in the
born
USA.
of America. It's like different, right? It's like different than being an immigrant because it's like you're kind of already in the culture, but you're already like perceived as like the other because skin tone, your facial features, your name is already so different. Even though you are like I was born in East LA, man. Like that's kind of I'm born at the same church that I play piano at every Saturday.
You were born
You
in
know?
the church?
No.
It's a hospital too.
Across
Oh,
the
it's a
street.
hospital. Okay,
Yeah,
I was
is
like,
next
wait a
to the
second.
church.
Yeah.
This
Oh, I was
back-
gonna say, yeah, this little, you see that like that whole green, the carpet that I always take pictures with. Yeah, there's a little stain there. It's like,
That's
yeah,
right, you were
it's
born on the
placenta,
carpet.
baby. But it's like you grow up in there and you like even though to other people, you are Asian, whatever. I personally feel that I never really felt super Asian. That's like it's a big other topic, probably something I'll write more about in the essay. But it's like as Aldous alluded to, you feel neither here nor there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's the thing, though. So if you're looking to me as the only person who was actually born abroad to speak on that, I'm not really the best person for it, because back when I was growing up in Hong Kong, I also felt different and not as Asian as some of my peers who went to the local schools, for example. To reiterate, I went to international schools, so we were all taught English, in English primarily, which is why I sound this way. And we're kind of like outsiders who weren't actually on the outside. It's a strange situation all about.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Ethan, I was gonna ask, like, our friendship doesn't go this far back, but it seems like growing up you were mostly hanging out with other like Asians. So did that like have anything to do with you, I don't know, not feeling as like outside or whatever?
Well, I was gonna say, like, even then, right? Like, the issue that I had with like Filipinos, which I've alluded to in the Discord, or maybe even said in like a story or something, is like MJ and I went to Christian school, and SDAs like they have a lot of dietary restrictions. Obviously, religion is another form of imperialism, and so the fact that SDAs don't eat certain foods kind of prevents some Filipinos from partaking or being aware of some cultural things. Like there's like pig's blood is like a dish in the Philippines, and of course I met other Filipinos like at my church who didn't go to a SDA school, who like grew up with it and maybe converted or whatever, but I couldn't connect with them. Like, oh yeah, like when I was a kid I ate this or whatever, or like you have all the uncles who drink and like go to like watch sports and and everything that feels so Filipino, but I don't have that because I like my whole family is like 3-generation SDA, because they got converted back in like the 70s or whatever, So even then, I was gonna say I do associate with Aldous where like you still don't feel like truly Asian, and there's always like that aspect too when you're maybe in the Philippines you wouldn't feel this way, but like in America, because everyone has such different backgrounds. Some people emigrate at different times. Depends how big your family is. You can feel as an outsider. So I think for me it trained me a little bit to kind of figure out like codes, not code switching, but like kind of figuring out like where you can belong or what qualities set you apart from other people. That was kind of like a big thing for me. What about you, Jason? Did you have a lot of Asian friends? And to be clear, I had only a little bit of Filipino friends. Most of my friends in my academy, K through 12, were Chinese or Korean. There wasn't a lot of Filipinos in my particular school, but MJ's in Glendale did, yeah, because demographically the San Gabriel Valley is more Asians, Hispanics, Koreans, Chinese, compared to the like Eagle Rock, Glendale area, which is a lot more Filipinos. But what about you, Jason?
I had no Asian friends at all growing up. I was the only like Asian person I
East
knew
Coast.
Growing up, because where I grew up in like Massachusetts was like Whitesville. It was people who flew like the Confederate flag.
Whitesville, Massachusetts.
Yeah, like they flew the Confederate flag, and I'm like, you live in the North.
Oh boy.
Like it's like pickup trucks.
They're all
I'm
Yankees.
like,
What
yeah.
the hell?
Like you could show them the border, right? You show them the
Right,
line,
you're like,
it's
they're
doesn't
not,
make any
they're like,
sense.
like this is not, you're not here. You're in the wrong spot. And I grew up super, super white, like, putting butter on rice, white. And, so I had like and there were Asian people like I knew of that went to I went to high school with, but they were the kind of Asians that were into like cars. And I haven't driven in like 6 years.
The racers.
Exactly, yeah. So I didn't.
You said it.
Yeah, I didn't even like acknowledge that I was Asian until I like moved to New York City.
Well, there's something funny. Like I think like as Asian started trending, right? Like I think remember I don't know if you guys remember this, but Tumblr had like Asian Day. I that's not the right name for it, but they had a thing where it's like Asian takeover. I think it was like Asian History Month, where like they did something like back in like 2013 or whatever, and like Asians started to like that's where Swagapinos became like a thing.
Asian, yeah.
Hashtag Asian.
Asian.
And the funny thing is that if you think about how TikTok has gone through the similar like maturity, like the exponential growth, or even like the what do you call it, the life cycle of social media, TikTok also had a hashtag Asian, hashtag Asian boy, hashtag Asian girl phase as well. And so something that's really interesting is like, as we talk about, shifting to the menswear topic, is like Asians have always kind of had this kind of, they're kind of dialed in the popular culture. Sometimes it's a little bit commodified, especially now we have K-pop. K-pop was big back then. K-pop is big now too.
Right.
Kind of had a resurgence and everything. But for fashion's sake, I'm kind of curious, like, do you guys think that, as Spencer just keeps eating away, like, do you think that had any effect on like your clothing? Like, did you see what your fellow Asians were wearing? Did you ever look at that, or did you ever feel like what you were wearing? Did you pick what you were wearing because you were Asian? Like any kind of early connotations there? Doesn't have to always be menswear exactly, but I'm just kind of curious. MJ, if you want to start.
Nothing overtly like super. I mean, we were kind of chatting about this before the stream. Like
Alex Santos.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
like before the stream. I mean, before recording. Like what makes like Filipino American, like the look
Style.
of a Filipino American,
Yeah.
Like I remember before the quote unquote uniform was like tan cargo shorts with like a black V-neck, high like Nike socks and Vans or whatever. You carry your ukulele with
Oh my
you,
God,
like,
yeah.
all the time. Like that was like
Puka shell necklace, maybe.
yeah, and then like horn rimmed glasses or Ray-Bans sunglasses. That was like
That look should come back.
yeah, that was
Well,
that's the
yeah.
Swagapino like
Swag-
Tumblr look, right? But like
Yeah.
that's not necessarily
Which you know what's really funny is that if you think about it, that's kind of like what white guys were wearing.
that's
Oh,
what I was
for
gonna
sure,
get into,
yeah.
right? 'Cause
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
It was like the adoption
I had a
of
puka shell necklace with
like,
a shark tooth on it.
Abercrombie culture, kind of.
yeah, the Abercrombie American Eagle like sort of look, right? But
No,
but it was
yeah, I
but like
remember
we
you had a
associate it
classmate,
here
right?
with Asians, yeah.
No, yeah,
Or with Filipinos.
And again, we're all, I the reason I assembled this kind of group is because you all just can talk a little bit about, Hong Kong and Canada. You got Jason on the East Coast here, and you got MJ and I on the West Coast, California, and yeah, obviously here, Asians make up a lot bigger of the population. Not huge, but like in terms of the other ethnicities down here,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Asians. I'm sure there's a lot in New York as well. But yeah, that identity of like the Filipino guy is is pretty big. I remember I said this on stream at one point, but for a long time, from what I remember, Asians in America just kind of dressed kind of normally. They had just like t-shirt, jeans, whatever. But the first guy I saw that did that Abercrombie look and became like that Filipino dude, Ray-Bans ukulele, was MJ's classmate, maybe an upperclassman. His
Yeah.
name was Alex Santos.
Yeah,
And-
shout outs to
and-
Alex that's
shout-
never gonna hear this.
Yeah, and he was like, it was so. After that, I saw everyone else, like from his school, like because I would see his school through like maybe a sports game or because like he goes to Glendale Filipino Church or whatever, and I if a
Oh, yeah,
church thing had,
MySpace
like,
was still a thing.
MySpace, so you would see
probably
some
would've-
people tag each
would've
other,
seen
yeah.
it.
So you would see it, and so for me, it kind of like MJ said, like it kind of becomes like, even though other people could wear it, to me it was like, oh yeah, well that's what like the Filipino.
Well, it's like
guys
assimilation, right?
would wear.
It's sort of like blending in.
And it could be that too, but it's also the fact that I think he came from like Georgia or something. Like he came from like the East Coast, so he's around like more like frat guy or like older brother.
Right.
I don't know, but like maybe he's bringing that culture, the prep frat culture, to California. Where like you still wearing the cargo shorts and flip flops, but you're wearing like a American Eagle polo shirt
Right.
instead, as
Yeah.
opposed to a t-shirt.
Yeah, he was like the first one to like wear like pink polos and like pastel colored like
and then the boat shoes. Too.
yeah boat
Yeah,
shoes,
yeah.
no socks. That everybody made fun of him for like a week, and then the next week everybody was wearing it. So
Yeah. I'm curious over in Hong Kong over there. Like, what did your classmates, when you were younger, what did they wear?
Yeah, well, in my head, there's a distinct Hong Kong look, which primarily consists of a lot of tech wear. So by that I mean moisture wicking, dry fit shirts, usually dark, maybe
Okay.
like a light. You know those, at Uniqlo where you see those really thin windbreakers that you can sort of roll into a pouch.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, that
Not
being the out.
sponsored.
yeah, that sort of stuff, and like
Even when
sweats,
you were a kid,
jeans.
or high school, I guess high school.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that was kind of like standard going out attire, and usually quite dark in tone, so black or.
So was it all like utilitarian, or was that just like
Yeah, there was
was there like a look to it?
Yeah, the look was eminently utilitarian in its basis. Hong Kong is a very humid place, especially in the
You don't
summer.
say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sports. So tech wear, stuff that wicks away sweat and moisture, seemed to be the standard. Of course, that's the average person who doesn't really care about fashion. We had fashionistas, but they never really delved into classic menswear. We were talking about it a bit before we started recording about how just because of climate, it's rather impractical to wear classic menswear practically
Mhm.
out and about.
Yeah.
It's 30 degrees Celsius with 100% humidity is a climate that
I don't
Can
know
someone do
that.
the
It's
conversion,
fundamentally-
please? To America? I
It's
mean,
like
American,
3,000
please. We're in America. This podcast is American.
3,000 degrees.
yeah,
Kelvin?
excuse you back with Americans, but
You're out.
Why don't
Why
you-
you here, Aldous?
Hey,
You're
Aldous,
outnumbered.
for what it's worth, I don't like it either. We're the weird ones. I'll take
Right.
that one.
right.
No, I mean, it makes sense. Science, it makes sense. I
Yeah.
get it.
yeah,
But
no,
Did you see that? I think the
Speak the
UK they're
president's
thinking about
English.
going to Fahrenheit or switching to the imperial
That's
system or
fantastic.
something
That's
like
the
that.
most English
what
thing.
is part of Brexit?
Because of Brexit, they're like,
Yeah, it's part of
fuck
Brexit,
you
they're
too.
leaving.
Fuck the European Union and metric
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that, but
I hope it
I wouldn't be
happens.
surprised given the amount of stupidity that's been going on lately. But anyway, I digress. The fashionistas in Hong Kong, they tended into streetwear and hypebeast stuff with visible logos
sure.
and all
Okay.
that. But that's
Keep
more but
repeating
that's
that,
more of
we're gonna
a
turn to that.
yeah, but that's more of a mainland thing, to be perfectly honest. Although I'm sure it bled over. But
Yeah, no, that's a hit. And mainland versus immigrating to other countries. That's a good thing. We'll get into in a second. Jason, what about you? Like, do you notice, like, if you were around other Asians, or do you think you dressed Asian? Were you aware of the Asian look?
I was aware. I was aware
school-wise,
of like
or-
the Swagapinos because I existed on the internet at this time. But it
Yep.
wasn't. They didn't really have like a direct influence on me in that way because they were already wearing like the same clothes that I was already wearing. I'm in middle school and high school, so I was wanting to wear like Abercrombie and like Hollis and all that.
Did you have like a Cookie Monster?
I did
brim or
not. I
whatever?
wasn't a hat guy,
God.
so I didn't do any of the Cookie Monster
Okay.
flat brims. But like I had like all the I had like leopard print skinny jeans or like
The skinny jeans. That
or
was
like
one.
the super saturated like Hollister t-shirts that just had no business being that saturated. Just no business.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, what are they doing? Come on.
They put
yeah.
too much.
Well,
They're-
so something I'm kind of noticing here is like I feel like a lot of Asians are kind of like on the, Asian Americans or mainlanders, whatever. Like they're always kind of like on the cutting edge of stuff, right? Like they're always even here. So for example, like I want to be able to for us to talk about everything, but I've noticed being around, seeing the Filipinos here, seeing the ones that live like that are creatives in LA. There's a lot of Filipino creatives in LA, but they're always like. It's not that I don't like it. It's very cool. It's like designer. It's very hype beast. It's like dedicated. Like it's Complex Mag. There's a bigger discussion to be had there with like Asian American culture and like Black culture as well. That's kind of like a big thing. But in general, right? It's very tapped into that kind of world. It's very street. It's very it's not classic
Right.
menswear. Is what I'm kind of getting at here. But when you compare that to mainland, or what I call like native Asians, from like Japan or Hong Kong or even the Philippines, for example, like there's a lot more Asians, it seems like, that are into that mode of dress, whether it's if they like to wear it or if they work in it. And that's kind of interesting to me where, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff involved, diaspora, culture, class, whatever. But it's just kind of fun to think about where, when I look here, it's like we don't really see too many Asian Americans or Asian hyphenates into classic menswear or workwear, etc. It's not saying that there aren't a lot of that there's not anybody into it, but when you think of like the Asian when you think of like classic menswear enthusiasts, they're usually white. There's not a lot of representation Yeah, there's a lot of representation, media-wise, branding-wise, lookbooks, even as creatives, designers, etc. Specifically in classic menswear. It's cool that everyone is in the other parts of fashion, but I'm just kind of wondering why it's a little bit more rare to be into classic menswear. Does it feel like, okay? Here's one question we can open up. Do you think it's because it's like a little white, it's a little colonizer? MJ, you're nodding your head. What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna. That could be part of it too,
Right.
because like at least for the Philippines, right? Like when you think about the Philippines, you can't really zero in on a broad native form of dress anymore. Like we,
Yeah.
we have like the Barong Tagalog and like the,
Mardi
like
Gras,
the women's version of that, right?
Yeah.
But like that's usually just for formal wear.
Which is still it's Western. It's
yeah,
based
which
on
is
like
already
Spanish culture.
yeah, which is already not ours. It's just an adoption of of peoples that came over to our land. But yeah,
And took it.
there's not like people don't know what that looks like, what like traditional Filipino wear looks like. So that could be kind of like our way of rejecting that like colonization. Like I don't want to dress like the people that conquered us, or the people that
There's a little bit more
that took away
of
our culture to
Yeah.
here you have to dress this way because this is civilized.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it probably isn't. Again, like we're probably thinking a little too much on it, but I don't want to discount the fact that could be a factor. We kind of talked about this with young Chomsky, right? Where like maybe the reason why leftists and communists aren't into classic menswear is because it represents like the bourgeoisie. It's like a class kind of thing. Even though we also talk about like Bernie Sanders wearing like JCPenney or whatever, but honestly, right? Like if you were to think about it, like a cool Filipino guy who is trying to, and there's with Asian Americans, Asian hyphenates, or even just immigrants in general, there's just kind of this need to stand out in a way to kind of break through the barrier of just being your race, right? Like that's why a lot of Filipinos, for example, are like really into the arts, right? Because you're trying to break that kind of stereotype of being into the like medicine and science, right? That's why a lot of them, even though they do still study it, a lot of singers, A.G. Raphael, it's all going over Spencer's head, but you have all this kind of all that kind of stuff to kind of like break out a little bit. So I can kind of see why would you want to wear something so conformist or something that you perceive to be conformist? Jason?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because like on the East Coast, right over here.
Yeah.
While we try, and say, oh, the East Coast, it's not, there's no racism issues or anything. The people I knew and people of like varying different like races and whatnot, the undertone was not to stand out. It was whether, the other Asians I knew of, like whether I knew them like, as acquaintances or like in school, they just wanted to dress how everyone else was dressing. There was no standing out. And it even comes across too when it came to, other like openly gay people that I knew. Everybody like especially where I'm from in Massachusetts, it's just stick to what everyone's used to. Don't stand out, which is obviously where my issues with the place comes from. But yeah, it's interesting you say that because like yeah, Asians and like especially Asians on the East Coast, the ones that I knew, it was like, no, I need to do white things. Need to do white things.
So do you think they dress nicely? Do you think that did you see any like Asians, if you saw them, like get into like more flashy like streetwear stuff or whatever?
Not really. It was a lot of it was like mall brands.
Okay.
It was like it was your Abercrombie's, your Hollers, and then you had the occasional like scene Asian that was at Hot Topic, but for the most part, there was like no. You're right.
Oh yeah.
It was me. There was like no one wanted to stand out. It was just.
Well, I think that's kind of true too. I mean, I can only imagine. What sucks is like I remember distinctly like there was one girl in my school who was kind of like alt and had it was one of those things where strife breeds alternative and indiness in a sense where like I remember like she had like family problems. Like I think I don't want to. This is not slander because I'm not really saying anything. But like I think
Docs,
there was one time
yeah.
where she was like really like she was like crying. Maybe she found out she was pregnant or something like that.
That's
a
a supposition, but yeah.
yeah. But it's like, like she was like the only Asian person there who would like dress like like the sleeve hand warmer stuff, plaid skirt.
Yeah.
I mean, or trying to. We had uniform, but like trying like you wear like the knee high socks with a uniform and make it like edgy, and. But she was like she was like a skater. She dated the skaters because there was so little of them, right? Like there wasn't a lot of like indie Asians back then, because I think you're right. The more I think about it, yeah, there is that part like to stand out, but maybe it's because I went to church or it's LA, but it's like it stand out in like the talent and wholesome way, maybe not in terms of the fashion way, but which is weird now because of the Indiization of everything, where alt culture is so like.
Isn't
pop
alt culture
now. It's mainstream.
Not, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm
where
not
it's
like other
where
girls.
people are kind of
Yes, you
paying
are.
more attention to it. Yeah, where people are like wearing stuff that's kind of weird, but that's kind of like what's
Right.
in, And I think a lot of Asians, for some reason, like Aldous, you talk about like mainlanders being very into designer clothing. Like, what is it there? I mean, designer clothing isn't always like Chinese designed, right? Like a lot of, some of them are still wearing like Italian or whatever designer clothing, right? So what do you think the appeal is there?
Yeah, well, this is just me, one person speaking his own
Sure,
opinion on
you're not
this
speaking on
matter,
behalf
but-
of
You're not-
China.
you can't
behalf
speak
of
on behalf
I don't-
Hong Kong.
Well,
we could call up China. We could find out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
we're
yeah.
not-
Hold on,
we're
let me
not.
pull it up real quick here.
Right, but
Why did they call me?
yeah,
Okay, go ahead, Aldous.
yeah, but this I think that it's rooted in displays of conspicuous consumption. For many years,
oh,
the
okay.
mainland, so mainland China, we're talking about mainland China here, which
Sure.
is different from Hong Kong, which was a colony for a good 140 years, a British colony. But mainland China was closed off to most of the world up until about 1980. And
Sure.
in the past 30 years, it was opened up to Western capitalism, and with the rapid growth of millionaires in the country, they really wanted ways to show off their newfound wealth and success. And I think it's from that desire for conspicuous consumption that you see a form of dress develop among mainlanders that is based primarily on displaying labels and symbols of wealth. Louis Vuitton bags, Burberry shirts, Supreme totes, bags, you name it.
Which goes against like the immigrant mentality of like sticking in your lane a little bit, right? Like I feel like when I was talking about like the Asians kind of standing out, maybe it's because their parents like like MJ. I don't know how art focused your parents are, but like I feel like my parents didn't do anything like to stand out. Like they went to work, whatever. But then on our side, like they always encourage us to like play the piano and sing or whatever, so maybe there's that kind of conspicuous, maybe not consumption, but like to be like your own person, but still kind of like not too much, right? There's still that aspect of it compared to like the literal, like I don't want to call it narcissism, but maybe that's what it is, where like when you're in your native country, you have the ability to not be considered the other, right? Like that's why we have a lot of issues, with not cancel culture, but like SJW culture now, where like something is offensive to Asian immigrants, Asian Americans or whatever, hyphenates, but the people in the mainland don't care.
Yeah.
But it's because they don't deal with that.
It's a different
that
experience.
ostracization. Yeah, exactly.
And personally, I think we do have a huge issue with cancel culture, and I think that should be the subject
I'm glad.
of the next episode.
Whoa, Louis C.K., when did you get here?
Yeah,
let's
he's over there with Dan Harmon.
let's put it this way.
Oh, God.
Rick and Morty's about to get
Yeah, I'll just
wild.
run with it.
Yeah. if you're conspicuously consuming, but you're surrounded by other people who are also conspicuously consuming, you aren't that conspicuous anymore. Which is the interesting.
It's like when you're on the freeway and everyone is speeding,
Right.
you're still speeding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I always got
you're
that
going with the
question
flow of
wrong
traffic.
when I was doing
Yeah.
my driving test, because technically, yes, the answer is yes, it is illegal, but
all the
do
people,
it.
but all the people,
It's probably safer to follow the
Right.
speed, the flow of traffic. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
but all these people speeding on the highway, on the freeway, are still conforming to being people who speed. So
Right.
it's
All a bunch of conformists.
what I was getting at is that the mainland culture, it seems kind of unique in that it's one that's based on outward expression, conspicuous consumption, as we talked about, which is in contrast to a lot of other East Asian cultures, which seem to value and stress conformity and humbleness. I suppose.
I'm the most humble.
Like in Hong Kong, it seemed as quite gauche and garish to wear labels like that. Although I'm sure things are changing as there's been increased cooperation. Cooperation being a
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
assimilation, let's say, between the mainland
There we go.
and Hong Kong. Things are probably changing, but historically, Hong Kong has always prided itself on being understated, focused. Like you judge me on the quality of my work, not so much the richness of my appearance, and words to that effect.
Yeah, people should judge me based on my ring jacket, not my.
Yeah, I want people to judge me based on my
not my
appearance.
my appearance
I
only,
look
not my
cool.
appearance. Yeah.
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 Well, okay, so that's all very interesting because it's like, we talk about the why there's a lot more native Asians, mainlanders into clothing, perhaps even classic men's performative dress more so than us, because it is still a form of like status symbol, right? Like to be able to afford a bespoke suit, and of course, yes, there is a long history of tailoring in other countries, right? B.N. Taylor has been a tailor for like over 60 years at this point. I'm sure there's tailors in Hong Kong who've been there 100 years.
Oh yeah,
Scott
it's
Chang is
famous for as a mecca for tailoring, Hong Kong. At least
absolutely,
historically.
yeah, and even now, right? There's still like new brands that are popping up in these places. Not just like of course Japan has a long history with Americana ever since World War II. But like even in the Philippines, you have Signet, right, which is like the armory of the Philippines. You have I'm trying to think of wasn't Leatherfoot Emporium owned by Asians or something like that? Was that right? No.
No, it was owned by someone of
Okay.
African descent.
Oh,
to
well,
that,
hey,
to that point though, while it's true that there are lots of tailors in East Asian countries, Japan, Hong Kong, Shanghai, back when that was still open to the world. There is a difference between that and places like Savile Row, and that Hong Kong tailors, for example, to quote something specific, always took a more workmanlike approach to tailoring, whereas in Savile Row the idea was to sell a house style. Each establishment would try to sell you a look. In Hong Kong, it was more about how can we cater to you, the consumer, usually an expat, not a local. And yeah,
That makes sense.
a visiting Englishman or an American, we can make you this suit exactly the way you want it. You tell us and we'll do it for you in 3 days. It was a workmanlike approach to clothing and not so much a hobbyist approach, an interest approach. So we have to be careful there. The fact that there are a lot of tailors in East Asia doesn't mean that there's a culture of classic menswear. There isn't. There's a culture of catering to classic menswear.
I would say yeah. Historically, yes, but I feel like it's changed now. I mean, there wouldn't be a place like Signet.
No. I was going to say that it absolutely has changed, and it is changing. We're starting to see the emergence of. I mean, even the places that survived, like WW Chan in Hong Kong, now they're starting to come out with style as opposed to advertising how good their workmanship is, which is what they would have done in the past. So things are certainly changing, but it's important to note that
the root of
that
it
even if you look in history book and you see that this WW Chan has been Hong Kong since 1930, it doesn't mean though that there's been a classic menswear tradition in Hong Kong for the past 90 years. That is coming out now. That is changing now, as you pointed out, even. But for a good 60 of those years, they were just making suits for English people and American businessmen.
Well, the thing is, it's cool, right? But the thing is, like, as we look into this, as we spend the next half of this kind of talking about our experience with classic menswear and representation, it's like when I was, getting into this, obviously with vintage, Spencer is my only friend, right? Like there was not just like, obviously there's a generational thing, but there was no Asians in that whole crowd. Maybe you would see more of that with like Asian pinup girls, right? Like, but anyone could be into like pinup clothing. Anyone could be into like wearing dapper day dresses. But the men's part, where are those people at?
I mean, we've talked about this before.
This is gonna get us
the
canceled.
West Coast vintage scene is a lot less I guess, like diverse than the New York
And
vintage
it's not
scene
based in queer or
seems.
burlesque culture, which is the big
Yeah,
thing,
because
too.
it's like it was mostly like a bunch of like older white guys who were like big into swing in the 90s, and
Yeah.
then there was like, there was a lot of like Hispanic guys who were into like rockabilly or like
And there's a
kind of like
couple of
Zoot Suit stuff,
Hawaiians
but-
and Japanese people,
Yeah.
but not like maybe some Filipinos who grew up in like East LA who are very close to Latino or Latinx culture. But again, that's not saying that, like the experience of like East LA Asians compared to like greater LA suburb Asians is very different, compared to like Valley Asians. The diaspora is kind of real, but as we're talking, as Aldous was talking about, like, yeah, things are changing now, but when I was getting into it, especially with classic menswear later on, all of the people that looked the closest to me were all native Asians, right? There was, Mark Cho, like, he doesn't really have an accent. He went to college in New York, just like Justin Chang also went to Brown, I believe. But they're still, like, they're Hong Kong. They're from Hong Kong. They are Hong Kong guys, we see, I'm trying to think of some of the, like, Chad Park obviously doesn't speak very much English. He's from South Korea. There wasn't a lot of people like me. There was always people who were like native Asians. Even today, when you look at like inspo albums, Japanese style is so big, but it's all Japanese people from Japan. You don't really see too many of that. And I really want to, like, there's no answer to it, but I'm kind of curious what we all kind of think of that, because I do think representation is important, because not everyone can be into something just because they love it. They sometimes, at the beginning stage, you want to see other people like you, right? Like, you don't want to be alone in something. Not everyone has that self-confidence to do something even when there's no one else like you, to be alone in your hobby. If that was like, I can't think of something, it's like why I stopped playing video games for a long time. I played Halo, but none of my friends had consoles. And so I stopped playing for a while until we finally had cross-platform to play with my friends. That's not race-based, but it's still a good example of that. I could have loved Halo a lot, but I didn't, so I stopped playing. But what about, okay, MJ? So you're in my, you're literally the closest to the cohort here, right? Like, what do you think about like representation and like seeing stuff? Because you got into it after we started hanging out more, after you
Right.
Went to college, and you're kind of learning it secondhand. How did you feel about seeing or not seeing Asians, Filipino, Americans, hyphenates in like menswear?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't, or I haven't always drawn like inspiration from people that are outside my circle.
Sure,
If that makes
okay.
sense, right? It's the whole Michael Scott, but he's quoting who was he quoting?
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
But like I'm quoting Ethan and not uh I don't know. I'm quoting Ethan Wong, not Ethan Newton, sort of thing.
Sure. Okay.
So, but the exposure, or like Ethan was saying, non-exposure to like representation, yeah, it kind of sucks, right? Because it's like I don't know how I would like fit in seeing something that's cool, but it's not someone that looks like me, sort of thing.
Right. I
Um,
mean, thankfully now we've got like enough self-confidence, clout,
yeah,
if you want to call it that or whatever, where it doesn't really matter
now,
anymore.
where it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter either way. But seeing it does help. You
Yeah.
know, I'm plugging Uniqlo again, but they use a lot of Asian models still, in,
That's
in their in their Western like material.
Right.
It's always nice to see.
I did want to plug in that, since, well, Ethan already mentioned it, how we both went to private schools, so we both had to wear uniforms. So that kind of, I guess, stunted mine at
The
least.
bubble? Yeah.
Probably, Ethan would probably agree, stunted that sort of like discovery of fashion,
Of
or
other-
discovery of
yeah, no, absolutely.
of clothes, because it's like we always wore khakis or navy slacks, and then white polo
Yeah,
shirt
but
all
you
the
got
time.
the
and then,
appreciation
like,
for the uniform.
if-
Menswear uniforms.
Yeah, and then we had to like find out the little loopholes to like wear something cool. So it's like we wear like the school hoodie, but like you have to make sure you buy the right school hoodie, or else like you look kind of dorky still because it's a uniform hoodie, stuff like that.
Yeah, at my school, the thing was I had to wear shorts year round. It wasn't cool to wear pants, and you had to wear the polo. You had to wear the polo shirt that had the flowers on it because it was like kind of it mostly
Like
looked
an-
like a Trader
like an
Joe's
Aloha
shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but it was just one line of
People used to do the
flowers
shorts
across the
year-round
front.
thing here, except it also gets below zero, and you have that.
It also
you got that
freezes your
asshole
legs.
sitting at the
Right.
bus stop,
Well-
like it's not even that cold out, and I'm like, you're shivering. I can see you shivering. I'm like,
negative
you're
degrees
standing in a
out
foot of snow.
Well, that idea MJ you said about and as I brought up too is like you're not seeing anybody. I mean, you look at like London and these multicultural Western countries like the United States and everything, and menswear is great. There's a lot. It's a burgeoning industry and enthusiasts and whatever with creatives, but there's still not that many Asians into it. And of course, we're probably missing a couple of people. We tried thinking about that in the in our Discord. The reason why we brought it up is because I think Bruce Boyer was like in an article and they were inviting someone over like, oh yeah, is menswear only Matt Hranick, Bruce Boyer, David Coggins, and Mark Cho? It's like there's got to where's where's BIPOC? And for that matter, where's the Asians? And that also came up right when Berkeley Breeds talked about how, for all the inclusionary talk that Rolling Blazers has, it's pretty true that they didn't have, from what I can remember from when they started, not a lot of Asian models. Until later on, you got like Fred, who is half Taiwanese, I think. And you got Peter Chu, I believe, or one of the Cozy Boys in there, who is also in a recent shoot for their rugby collection, which is great. Obviously, that's really cool. But you still the fact that you see this stuff not very often makes you notice it, right? Like, oh yeah, Henry Golding's in a lot of stuff. Is there no other Asian actor we could get? Same thing, Simu Liu, right? He's in a bunch of different stuff. Aquafina.
But Henry Golding's tall.
That's right.
As we discovered.
And it's like, what? Like, so why? Like, and there's an Asian. Maybe I can find it. But there's an Asian British model who is in Drake's, who is in a ring jacket, and then I found him at Target too. And it's like it's really
he's
crazy.
securing the
that,
bag. He's getting
everywhere.
good for him.
Playing all the
And-
levels.
I always-
yeah.
Mr. Worldwide.
I always love seeing
This is our Pitbull.
classic menswear models show up at Target or Kohl's, whatever.
Yeah,
it's from.
exactly.
It's like, hey, I know
J.
you.
Crew, too. But it's like the
Yeah.
fact that you see the same people all over it. I'm not gonna say it's malicious, right? I don't want to, but it can come off as tokenism. Like, oh well, let's just get that Asian guy,
you talk about
right?
inclusion, and then you have this guy's been in every other campaign, so we'll include him too. Meanwhile, white
Exactly.
models
And-
are a dime a dozen. You'll never see the same
and
one
representation is tricky. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's tricky for that reason, right? Because it's like you want to give opportunities. For a long time, Brad Pitt was in a bunch of stuff, right? So maybe this could be their version of it. But then shouldn't we have learned something from that by then? Now, so it's like is dilution the key here? But yeah, I wonder why that is. And it's funny because like a lot of other styles and a lot of other modes have a lot of Asians. Like Gian De Leon, he works at Nordstrom as the editorial director. You got Jimmy and Throwing Fits, but within this this very small circle that we have, it's not that common, right? Like even at Drake's, like Will worked at Drake's, Kevin worked at Drake's, but then they moved on to other stuff. Obviously, the Armory didn't have an Asian guy. The New York one at least, right? And even all the guys in the Bullshot Book Club are all fairly.
Well, I mean,
white,
now I'm at Drake's,
right?
and there's a guy there at Daniel, and he's Asian. I
cool.
believe
cool.
he's South
And
Korean.
is Brandon
but I'm not sure. I didn't ask him.
okay?
So if I'm wrong, we have to
Okay.
cut this part of the podcast so I don't seem like a racist. But I'm pretty sure he was writing this notebook
bad.
in Korean.
Is Brandon? Brandon's not.
I don't
is he
think
part
so.
Asian? Do you think? I thought he was. Okay, I thought he was like part
That'd be cool if
Filipino
he
or
is.
something, but maybe I could be wrong.
Everybody's
Yeah.
part
Right.
Filipino these
More of
days.
us. See,
I'm
yeah,
I'm literally
Filipinos are gonna
I'm
take
like
over
the
now.
whitest guy
But-
there, except for the
the-
part-time
can-
guy Frank.
Well,
No,
I
it's the
wonder,
Frank.
right, if this is, and I don't want to say it, come off as like a weird way, but like, is that because Drake's has gotten a little bit less classic menswear traddy and got a little bit more, into the more current lexicon, right, with the whole menswear merger, post-pandemic menswear, which is a lot more accessible. Not accessible like accessible cool wise for a lot of Asians or people of culture, POCs and everything,
Yeah,
right? Like
maybe.
where before it's
I
so
think it just-
trad, right?
Right, I think
it's
it
hard
has
to
more
imagine.
to do just with like Brandon wanting to hire more people, more diverse team,
and being
right,
more connected
I
in that
mean,
world, maybe.
Yeah, because I mean, he had a few. Obviously, there was like Sterling, who was very pale. He's from Seattle, so yeah,
mayonnaise.
how do you?
Well, I was gonna say, if we look about here in LA, right? Like the guys at Hall Madden,
Right.
both white. The guys who are at Sid Mashburn, I
Well.
believe they're all white. I think there was one Asian guy or one guy there. And the thing is, right, because it's tough, right? Like Sid Mashburn. A lot of the cool thing about Sid Mashburn is that the guys who work at the LA store moved from like Georgia to like work in LA for the Sid Mashburn. Like they love the brand, which is cool, But if you're sampling from a really preppy state, obviously you're gonna get white preppy dudes
Yeah.
working there, and it's kind of wild, obviously, when we were in, when I was in New York, going to like ALD and NOAA, yeah, obviously there's gonna be a lot more diversity there, but again, when you look at the tailoring trad stuff, it's still really hard. Berkeley Breathe has tried to show a couple of times when there's Asian prep school kids or whatever, which is proof, I'm sure there were Asian people who went to prep school here in the 60s, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, but it's still not that common for me to find an Asian American in here as like a source
Right.
of
Yeah,
inspiration, that it was born here, that is not like a I'm sure there's a lot of Japanese people who moved here, who became like style icons in a sense, Zayn, right? Zayn Aldous
From
is
One
as
Direction,
as a good example of it.
Yeah, not as cool, unfortunately. The issue I think is that while there's certainly, and you've brought up the Berkeley Breeds examples, there's certainly there's historical images of Asians wearing trad preppy clothing. It's more an instance of follow the leader though, rather than wearing it out of your own personal interest.
Yeah,
and that's I think is the greatest disconnect then for Asians and Asian hyphenates than there is for other cultures, is that there really isn't an ingrained, even a little bit, an ingrained idea of wearing tailoring as just clothing and not as event wear, work wear, banquet wear, funeral wear, wedding wear. It's always one of those things. Whereas, let's say if you were a trad guy, the guys you talked about from Hall Madden who came from the South, maybe growing up, I'm not saying that they were steeped in the menswear tradition either. In this day and age, most people aren't steeped in menswear traditions of any kind.
Right.
But yeah, but
Yeah,
Maybe you know what a blazer is.
yeah, but maybe
right.
those guys saw their grandparents or their grandfathers, mowing the lawn in some ratty OCBD because that's just what shirts
That's
are.
it. That's all
But there
shirts
isn't
are.
any of that in East Asian. Yeah, in East,
No.
there isn't any of that in East Asian culture. Insofar as we see an OCBD, if you think about how the Japanese see it as another East Asian culture, they've really codified it. They don't see it as a shirt. They see it more in terms of technical specifications, which they use to copy and recreate the clothing back when
Right.
it was introduced to them in the 50s by Americans.
Right.
So it's coming at all of this in a technical aspect, from a technical standpoint, along with the lack of a cultural history of
Right.
wearing this sort of clothing out of choice as opposed to out of obligation. And when you combine these two things, that results in just people of Asian descent being unable to fathom the idea, perhaps more than others.
Right.
It's
of
just not
wearing,
cool to them, but it's just
you can't fathom the idea of wearing of choosing to wear classic menswear, of choosing to wear tailoring. It's workwear.
It's
office
like if
wear.
you're a
event wear.
firefighter and it's like I'm just gonna
Everywhere,
wear my
yeah,
firefighter
all the time,
uniform,
yeah.
like the full gear,
Right.
on
Yeah.
and off. Yeah.
Wear my suit.
There's
to
a
fight
greater
fires.
disconnect there for I think Asians. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear my suit to fight
I mean,
fires and
yeah.
my firefighter clothes
can't-
to go to work,
you
to
know,
go to
it's-
business.
This is why, as I think about this more and more, it's like a wonder I got into classic menswear, right? Because it's like
It's a wonder.
I shouldn't be into it, like right, like there was nothing conducive.
Same
for,
here,
I mean,
yeah.
MJ. I mean, other than the church connotation, but no one wants to be look like they're going to church
Well,
every day.
apparently some people
You know,
do,
like
because I see a lot of people
yeah,
who look
that's-
like they're
that's
always
not
going
us.
to church.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I mean,
and we
Take
make
it.
fun
we
of
bad
those
people?
people.
Wait, so when did you first get interested in like suits and everything, Ethan? Because I mean, I was a little boy who loved getting dressed up, and I think
You were a little
that's
lad.
that's a thing that transcends race.
Well, okay,
Sometimes
okay.
little boys just putting on nice clothes.
Well, okay. I think when I was a kid, yeah, obviously, like for like picture days or whatever. But here's the thing, right? It's like, I wonder, like there's an extra layer that we know all the time we talk about. Where like we're dressing up because you want to be the good Asian boy. Like
Yeah.
not saying that like Filipinos thankfully don't have like as a history of like as like violence. I mean, maybe in some places of like LA, right? Also Vietnamese gangs or whatever like that. I don't know if my grandparents back in the 70s also thought about that in the back of their head, because they lived in Montebello, literally East LA until of course my family moved to
was in the
Northeast
mob.
LA. But there was a part. I mean, I did go through a phase where I didn't want to wear like the clothing. I didn't want to wear like the suits and ties and everything. And again, it only really connected when it became about like the art of it, like what makes this garment so interesting. Like like I said with the Gatsby, like okay, well he's wearing like a 3-button jacket. Like what's going on here? The collar is like rounded. He's wearing like a little spear point thing. And what like the vintage versions have like horizontal lapels and such. So it was only like when that was there, and like that's where it again like, all this connects. Like my grandparents, I didn't see my grandparents that often, and if I did, well, at least my grandpa from my dad's side, but my Lolo on my mom's side, I remember he was wearing like wife beaters and pants, dude. Like classic Lolo clothing, Filipino uncle clothing. There wasn't that whole thing
There's
like
the-
my
there's the
grandfather
function.
was like dressed up. Yeah, it's just functional clothing. He might have worn a button-up shirt to like mow the lawn, maybe because he was wearing
Yeah,
it.
or
Maybe that's more of like
button-up
a
shirt
modern thing where like now he's just
for
so
their
old
court
he doesn't really
clothes.
care what he's wearing anymore. But other than church, there was no church occasions. There was no real need to wear this clothing. And even then, my grandparents, when I started to collect vintage clothing, it's like, why are you so dressed up? And maybe because I think, yeah, you could say like, oh yeah, it's just weird to be dressed up in general. But I feel like there's also a thing of like,
Right.
don't stand out. Like, what are you doing? Like don't be different. And that's why I'm like, it's so odd to me, like to be different from all of these other menswear bloggers or whatever who have, like a history of like trad, right? Like your grandpa, your father, whatever. Yeah. Looking back, my dad was well dressed. Like, yeah, he wore like Armani when he saved up. He wore like, those
Yeah.
big old, padded shoulders and everything. But when I was growing up by
Yeah.
that time, it was already gone. Like it was only in like the old 90s photographs. And, before I move on here, it's just like, I think what really has to happen, like with all things, is that menswear just has to be cool. And the thing is, for a lot of Asian Americans,
It's
Asian
not.
hyphenates, the cool thing is just not classic menswear. Although now it's changing a little bit, right? Drake's, Noah, ALD. But even so, the mode that I wear, again, the more tailored tie wearing part, tailoring focus, sport coats, etc., the trad of it all. Even though I know Berkeley's not listening to this, he might be mad how I'm
He'll
using
read
the
the
trad.
notes.
They
But
mad.
that
Yeah.
look is
Well,
still...
he doesn't listen to the podcast, so unless we make
Make sure you put this in the notes.
Yeah, unless or we could be like Sean Crowley's like, I
I
don't even
saw
know what the
him
hell that
today.
is.
yeah.
But again, unless that's the point, unless it's cool, I feel like they're just not gonna get into it, which is again a bigger thing. But I just wonder, like, why not?
Yeah.
Or clearly it was enough for the rest of us. But Aldous, what did you have to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on something that you said, which is it's not just that there isn't a tradition of classic menswear in traditional East Asian upbringings, but a lot of times, and this is true of my own experience, there is outright direct opposition to, sticking your head out of the crowd,
Sure.
of choosing to dress in a way that none of your peers are. That was certainly true of me. even to this day, my parents still don't understand what the hell I'm doing.
Same.
Why I choose to wear tailoring when I don't have a white collar job to go to. It's just, and it links back to the idea of it. People just can't fathom. People of my parents' generation
Just
who
don't
grew up
get
in
it.
Asian cultures can't fathom the idea that
get
this
it,
clothing
Mom.
doesn't have to have meaning behind this.
Yeah.
To them, any combo of sport coat, tailored jacket, shirt, and tie will always be a signifier of some kind of social position, work position, or status. They can't move beyond that. So that's an additional reason why we may not be seeing classic menswear expanding in Asia. Parents shoot their kids down.
Shoot them.
When they start experimenting.
But okay, but like let's say here, right? We're sometimes, if you have more easygoing parents, immigrants, whatever, or maybe more assimilated parents who maybe don't think about it as much. What is the issue now where, we're still not seeing enough here? Maybe this is more of a question for MJ and Jason here. What do you guys think is the reason that we're not seeing more, people trying to work in the industry, for example, or people just kind of wearing it on their own. Even Sad Head Saturday, or I guess, I'm sorry guys, Sad Head Sunday, I should say. Like even then, and even the Discord, the Patreon, not saying that we're the only good form of menswear media you can consume.
We're the only one.
But it's still, maybe we should ask Jason also, what was it like being at the WM Brown thing? Let me ask you, were there a lot of Asians there?
I would consider myself to be probably the only Asian there.
Okay.
Fred was there.
Fred was there. You both can make a half Asian.
Looking at him, I didn't even look at him and give him.
Well, it's like a weeping angel thing. If you look at maybe you'll die or something.
Well, if you guys make contact,
right? Yeah, we can't make contact. Right. Yeah,
it's like matter coming into contact with antimatter.
Yeah. MJ.
I was gonna say, going back to your question, it's probably because it's still seen as like old man clothes, as opposed to like we talked about how like dressing edgy, or like how the the current like e-boy, e-girl looks, punk looks are all kind of like youth centric and kind of like sticking it to the man sort of thing. And then
menswear is not
menswear is menswear is the man.
I mean, it's starting to become against the man.
That's why
it is.
Right.
Which is part of that.
Right.
Yeah,
because it's like people like us, because it's thanks to us. It's claiming it away from
right. I mean, because what's weird, and before I get to Aldous in a second, it's like even as someone who's on TikTok all the time, it's like
10K.
When I see Asian men's, or not men's, like fashion guys, Asian TikToks, like it's still very, to me, avoiding menswear a lot. Like I still we see the ALD loafers and everything, white socks, and maybe the 80s inspired blazer. I see that a lot. Maybe there's some Asians, but it's the representation there is still very white, or just at least for my purposes, non-Asian.
Are you seeing a lot of like classic menswear TikTok content from non-Asians? Because I'm wondering if that's just
but I meant like even
we're outside the demographic.
What I mean is like even with like menswear adjacent stuff, like the Noah styles, everything like that, it's still people getting into it aren't just not Asian. Like there's like a lot of, even all the vintage pickers too, right? Like where you would think maybe like Japanese TikTokers would get into, but like no, like a lot of the pickers that I see picking like orange tab Levi's whatever are still all white. Or at the very least non-Asian. I'm kind of, again, I'm still curious, like what is it there that is just like a classic, it doesn't have to be menswear, but like Americana, that entire look, or Americana adjacent, is still not palatable.
It's not that it's not palatable, it's just it's not our experience. It's not our it's not our history. It's not really our culture.
But do you think you need history? Like I feel like you don't need to have a at the Filipino thing, I saw a lot of guys wearing liner jackets. I mean, I guess it's kind of Americana.
No, you don't need history. But I think insofar as Asian Americans here, there are a lot more Asian Americans here who are into classic menswear and Americana than there would be in quote unquote the home countries. because of the experience of being an American, of being a North American, giving you that leeway. But if you're asking,
thank you for clarifying North America.
Yeah, but
not because of course.
But
once again, you're talking about Asian Canadians, I guess technically here, right?
Yeah, technically. Although, what's the difference, really? Culturally speaking, anyway. But MJ, you and the rest, and you, Ethan, you were both discussing the idea of just they're not of. Why can't I see Asians into classic menswear in North America? But I'm not sure if this is an Asian American problem so much as it is just a problem with classic menswear across all ethnicities, that it's just not really popular. Because I think that if you filter down to first Asian hyphenates and people are into classic menswear, there are significantly more people who are Asian hyphenates and into classic menswear in North America than there are in Hong Kong, for example, or in Korea or in Japan.
I would really like to see on the census in 2030 the question be added, are you into classic menswear? And then we could break it down. So it's like, this is the percentage of Asian Americans in the country. What's the proportion of Asian Americans who are into classic menswear compared to?
And where's it the densest in the country? Right?
One thing, if I may, one thing that I dwell upon a lot is I spent my formative years in Hong Kong, but then I moved over here, and my interest in classic menswear really developed when I was here in Canada, in North America, not in Hong Kong. And often I wonder if, had I stayed in Hong Kong, would I have developed my interest in classic menswear in the same way? And in thinking about it, I think not, actually. I think if I'd stayed in Hong Kong, I wouldn't have developed my classic menswear interest. No, I wouldn't have been tech wear, but
Rick Owens.
Isimiyaki.
Yeah.
no.
Speaking of Asians, Isimiyaki.
No, I wouldn't have been tech wear, but I definitely wouldn't have been Ivy. I wouldn't have had any tweed sport coats. I wouldn't have had any OCBDs because these things would have been in addition to the societal pressures, the parental pressures.
So you would have
the parental opposition, I should say.
That's something that might be different.
No, I didn't have my parental approval. I would have had, in addition to my parental disapproval, just the fact that it's impractical to wear classic menswear in Hong Kong's climate, and also all my friends would have universally not been wearing that because no one really wears. Like, you see the Armory guys walking around, but those guys.
You mean you're
no
not
one
friends
really
with them
wears
just 'cause you're
tailoring
from
in Hong Kong outside of the office.
I
didn't know.
I thought all Hong Kong people
small
knew each
island.
other.
Yeah, we
the whole all of them.
All 7 million of us correspond
Yeah.
regularly.
Oh yeah,
Jason,
so I found
you
this
were
really
saying
interesting today. 75% of all the Drake's archive sales go to South Korea.
Huh.
Purchase 75%
Like
of
purchases?
Drake's archive sale purchases are sent to South
wow.
Korea.
Maybe the Homelanders are what's taking our clothing, not the white people.
I wonder how much of that is out of personal interest, though, as opposed to dressing well for work. Because I'm not saying that people in Hong Kong or in East Asia don't know how to appreciate clothing.
But Drake's though, right? Like, I feel like the fun.
There's
times.
a great disconnect, which is different from North American culture, I think, which is people are interested in menswear in Hong Kong. Aren't all just doing it out of a sense of obligation, but they really stop things. They really separate work. And
Squid Games guys
personal
were wearing
rights.
suits.
Your interest in classical menswear can only extend so far as. I feel like growing up and feeling the vibe of people around me, it's like you can be interested in. It was like you could be interested in classic menswear, but your interest in it could only extend as far as being at work. As soon as you took it out of work, you were really fucking weird, and to be chastised and avoided.
And that's why the American, or I guess North American aspect of it, immigrant, second generation, third generation, is more interesting because I feel like you are free of that in a sense, right? But there's still that idea, as we wrap up a little bit, like of the people that I do see that are into it, it's still not trad, and that's probably a more thing to do with like neckties and being boring than it is for like actual menswear, because we got guys like Sora, right, who is into classic menswear in a sense, but when you see him, he doesn't, he still looks like a cool gabagool New York, Seinfeldian Sopranos mixture, and not like the Esquire man. You know what I mean?
But that kind of
like even Derek, a guy, right? Like he doesn't want to. I mean, none of us have ever like seen him face to face. Maybe Spencer? No, just your just a voice. But even then, he's still very clear about like not dressing super trendy, especially when he talks about what he buys. It's still classic menswear, but it's not like, again, a like navy suit with like a blue striped shirt and a very plain geometric tie. There's still the aspect of, again, it's just me wondering, like, man, why are people into like wearing ties, and where's all the Asians into it?
But the fact that trad isn't as popular in Asia just sort of adds to my point, which is that the interest in classic menswear and tailoring in Asia is predicated on the idea that this is work clothes, these are event clothes. So it would make sense that
not a thing though.
It would make sense that
when you're looking at things for fashion's sake, for fun's sake. Again, it's why is it that they're not as into it, right? Like this mode of fashion, because I feel like here, even on in a style forum, urban composition, they still talk about how this is still at the end of the day fashion. Even Derek says that a lot. Jesse says, and put this on, they say that a lot too. Blammo, all the guys who work in it, so it's just, I'm just wondering, maybe this is just indication that it will happen at some point, but it's the barriers to entry now are lower than ever, right? You have Calaro clothing. You have Derek, right, from New York too, Houndstooth, formerly known as Houndstooth. I don't know what his thing was before.
Okay.
But like there is still there, but like again, like it's not as much as I would think there is, just because of like how prominent everyone across all races who are into classic menswear will still have a Japanese guy in their inspo feed, right? Everyone like Mark Cho, but like I wonder, like, okay, hopefully at some point that will increase representation, because like, okay, there is someone who's kind of like,
well, I think as the line blurs, sorry,
well, like going back,
blurred lines,
well, going back to Aldous's point, but like kind of, I guess, broadening it, I think it's like, maybe now that I'm thinking of it, there's like 24 people who are like into menswear, and then everyone else is either buying it for work, or those 24 people who are into classic menswear are just they all work in it.
There's a lot of that.
Clothes.
Right.
So,
but even then, right, it's still not representative. Like, there's not a lot of Asian people in that group.
But like what I'm saying is like, maybe like the moment for like for classic menswear has just passed, and like maybe we've reached the point where the most people who are going to be into it are into it already.
Right. Well,
and so like finding new people to get into it might be difficult.
I think it will expand.
The people that we're looking for.
That's what I was gonna say. Like I feel like if you're like us, hopefully you are also Asian, and because that's true, right? I mean, like,
we really hope
you
you're
listen
Asian.
to this podcast. We hope you're Asian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. Again,
as
we close up a little bit too, like we think about like the most recent convert to this whole thing, right? Adam, he's Asian. Who he kind of gets the, and it might even be worse because then he's Asian, right? Like he can't even identify with full Asians at this point, right? Or I guess with Jason, you guys are close, but like there's that idea, right? You're still you have an extra hyphenate in front of you, where you're the other, but you still like it's still an idea of he can get into it, he can kind of see it, and it's my hope that other other Asian people, North America or otherwise, will kind of see and can get into it in the way that we have. Because to go back to what Aldous was saying about like if he was in the homeland kind of a thing, like I feel looking back, if there was a lot of Asian Americans in classic menswear and I looked at it, maybe I wouldn't have done it. Maybe
You're
there's a
basic.
little part.
You would have been like, oh, that's basic.
Yeah, and you know me, I hate things
That's old
that people
man
do.
clothes.
I'm not like other
But it's like,
Asians.
you know, I wonder if there was not an opportunity, but it's like, you know, if I could get into it from some weird standpoint where like I have like literally no connection to it, where like Berkeley has said before, like, oh, it seems that Ethan's has his exposure to prep is only through like 1980s movies where the preps are the bad guys. Yeah,
Right.
because that's what my fucking mom watched. You know, I have no thunder here. My mom unironically loves the preppy handbook because that's literally her bible to the time. Who is she gonna
Right,
look at?
sorry.
Like the Hispanics in
Yeah.
her neighborhood for this stuff, you know? SDAs. I don't think SDAs are inherently trad, you know? Maybe back in like the 1920s or whatever, Methodists converting over.
Everybody
Are
looks like
Methodists
that.
trad? No,
so
because trads are fucking
Yeah.
like Catholic, right? So, but yeah, I mean, you
Well,
know,
there's trad calves, but I think trad could be anything.
how about radical trad traditionalists?
Rad trad.
How about rad trad trads?
Yeah, but I do think a little bit is, you know, I want to be here to prove that other people can get it. Like if I wasn't into MJ, wouldn't have been into it, right? And we would have lost, you know, the best podcast producer
This
and,
side
you
of the
know, and one of the
Mississippi.
gamers in question, you know, because it is really tough, I think, to look out there and to not be affected by the fact that you don't see people. Thankfully for me, I can look at a Drake's, you know, lookbook and be like, oh, I can wear that. But I know a lot of people who are not us will still look at it and be like, well, why would I wear that thing? You know, I think people still need the reference standpoint. People still need an example to see themselves in it, right? That's, you know, it's the same thing with, you know, not just Asian American or Asian representation, ethnicity representation, but like silhouettes and body types, right? And I feel like that's what's really cool, and we don't see that talked about enough. Not saying that menswear is malicious for it, but maybe they're just, you know, not aware of how important that stuff is. Especially if, like, you know, if you are like the monoculture, where most people in menswear that we see are, you know, relatively fit, relatively tall, with, you know, standard bodies at income levels. You know, we don't see like the stories of, you know, of like people
Right.
like us, ethnicity or body type or otherwise. You know, but yeah, hopefully we'll see more. You know, we'll see more people from Rowing Blazers, not because Berkeley called them out for it. You know. I really would love to see it. Or at least, you know, camaraderie with other people who are like, you know, like Marco is a good example, right? Where he's a Filipino immigrant, Filipino American at this point now, but like he's into different clothing, but there's still the through line there, right? Like we still see some commonality with him.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think even at Throwing Fits, I don't recall if there was a lot of Asian people there.
I feel like every Asian who's in North America and is therefore an Asian hyphenate who would be into menswear is, because of the fact that he is in North America, able to be into menswear and express himself as such. Whereas I feel like there's a significant portion of Asian people who would have been into classic menswear, but because they live in Hong Kong or South Korea or Japan, feel like they can't, or try, or have to suppress it somewhat in that really collectivist, conformist society. Do you think, as we wrap up here, we should summarize, because we've discussed a lot, we made a lot of good points, but if we could summarize why we think people of Asian ethnic descent aren't into classic menswear, why it doesn't appeal as much to them, I think that would be good as we close out.
Well, I think you hit it on the head with the mainlanders, right? It's just, you know, menswear as art is still relatively new, right? You know, and you're starting to see some changes, right? You're seeing Brio make his own made-to-measure line, right? The Pacino, you know, you're seeing, you know, Signet, all these people who are still, thankfully, still around. You know, it's still burgeoning. I just hope. Again, the real challenge is to bring it back here, where again it's the funny thing. It's like ambitor, right? Where like Japan does American style better than America does. You know, it's about like kind of bringing it back in a sense, right? And that's why, you know, you got guys like, you know, Kenji, right? Still Asian, kind of, you know, showing stuff with Brycelands, even though he's in Hong Kong, you know. When he has trunk shows here, hopefully the hope is like, you know, people around here will get into it. And then you've also got like, you know, people like the guy who makes Brogue, right? Brogue up in NorCal, who or the Bay Area, who owns a shop and has classic menswear, there. It's still a bit more rugged. It's not super trad, and by that again I mean like ties and button-down collar shirts. There's still like more denims and rayon shirts and Alden, the crazy Alden stuff. But it's still, it's fun to see these guys go there and come back with it, and it's just a challenge to get people into it here. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if it's representation. The best we can do, I think, is to just kind of represent it the best we can and keep documenting it so people can find these stories later.
I think,
Jason, what do you think?
Obviously, as menswear sort of gets more like fashion oriented, because obviously classic menswear isn't fashion. It's just its own. Right.
At least for not a long time.
And so as it becomes more of a fashion piece with it, brands like Rowing Blazers and even, Drake's as well, we'll see a lot more Asians hop onto it, and then will be, just like with everything, once you get into it, you're really into it, and then afterward you kind of step back, and that's when, that's when they'll get into, like the navy suit with the pattern, with a geometric tie and striped shirt. Whereas at first they might be, doing a few more, maybe a few more like the Rowing Blazers eccentric colored cord suits. But then they'll take it back. Eventually they'll get all that out of their system, take it back, but they'll still be into it because they spent time in it.
Well, that's kind of the funny thing, right? Where I think about, I don't consider myself an influencer. I haven't, by which I mean I don't really remember meeting a lot of Filipino menswear guys who are like, I got into it because of you. Because in my head, right, it sucks that I really do love really traditional style of clothing, and I can't be that guy because it's just not cool enough. But the thing is, it's like I've started to kind of get more into the fashion side of it more. Not that I've never liked it, but like kind of embracing that side or experimenting with like my merch shirts and everything to be more palatable. Not that palatable is like the inherent goal, but maybe embracing the cool side is a good thing for just my self-expression, but also can show other people that there is versatility to it. So I'm not put into the boxes that suiting guy. And like you said, it's WM Brown might not be the best place, or whatever, like some Savile Row thing might not be the best place for menswear representation for Asians, but Party at Rowing Blazers, Party at Noah, ALD stuff might be. And as these places introduce more and more menswear adjacent things, it will hopefully, as things that, as a trickle down theory, hopefully it'll work, right? Because we just saw Adam buy his
trickle down works every time.
Yeah,
you can't name one time trickle down is not.
But like
worked.
I mean,
never not
but
worked.
Right. But I mean, it's like we had Adam, a year and a half ago buying like beanies and short coats. Now he just bought his first hop sack suit and wearing it with a denim shirt and tie. It's like, okay, like, so it's there, so maybe as time goes
I think
on,
too you'll see the changes as well in the in the upper echelon of menswear. In the Savile Row tailors will eventually start realizing that this Asian market that's showing up for Rowing Blade, showing up for Noah, showing up for Drake's, it's going to be something they're going to want to show up for them as well. I mean, even like Savile Row tailors have started making things in China to be able to lower the price point to get a much younger clientele in, and eventually that's going to lead to an Asian clientele as well.
Diversity. Yeah, no, absolutely. All just final point.
Yeah, it's. I think you're both hitting on the idea then that the fact that what's keeping Asian hyphenates away from classic menswear isn't really a specific ethnic problem, but it seems to be more international. It's just the idea that classic menswear across all sorts of ethnicities isn't terribly cool at this stage in history.
The big issue.
because it feels like it once if we ever get to the point where classic menswear is more cool, we'll see. I don't see any reason why Asian hyphenates would be more excluded than incoming new European hyphenates, because while I suppose there may be some like what we're talking about, the lack of cultural roots of cultural roots in wearing classic menswear in people of Asian descent. I don't think that's much of an impediment. The main thing is that just classic menswear isn't that cool now.
We gotta get it cool for Asians. Maybe the issue, the paradox is it will be cool once Asians are into it.
I was gonna say like the menswear convergence where everything gets more casual and samey. That's what's gonna open it up finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just making it making menswear more palatable to everyone. Except for like white people in New York or whatever.
In making menswear more.
That's a good thing.
Anytime we complain about it, anytime we complain about the menswear convergence, you can call us
Make
out.
menswear
for being
Asian.
racist.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to this. Hopefully this was interesting for you guys as we take our break for December. We'll be back in January with a new season of Style Direction, I guess.
New season.
Whatever. Because like I keep saying, we're going to be doing this for 3 months and we take 1 month off because we're all, we need that break. But hey, if you want more of us, join patreon.com/StyleDirection. Joining up $5 a month.
It's a half Asian podcast. Support us.
Actually, it's 2/3
By not
Asian.
supporting it, that's
Two-thirds
Asian
Asian.
hate, and that's not very Stop Asian Hate of you. It's not very
AAPI dudes, come on,
positive of
dude.
you guys.
Hell yeah.
Support a POC owned business.
That's right.
Sign up for our
That's
Patreon.
right. That's correct. Well, also big thank you to our Sadcast fanatics. MJ, you want to tell us who they are?
Our Sadcast fanatics are Austin Millot, Shane Curry, Philip Gregard, Audrey Jessica, Jeremy Ostriker, and Jarrett Colian.
Yeah, sounds diverse to me, baby. Oh yeah, I mean, hey, I know we didn't get to shout them out, but Burlington and Indonesia. I mean, I know it's a homeland or native Asian kind of a thing, but that's still a cool representation to see them doing menswear. But anyway, thanks to them for being our top tier patrons. Again, join us in the Discord, which is still kind of diverse. I think still some white people there, but we love them anyway.
Still
they're
some.
the good white.
Well,
people.
we're actively trying to
kind of
purge
whites.
them. Is that the implication?
If you guys want to follow you can follow me at Ethan Wong.
I'm at Spencer DSO.
I'm at Aldous.Shaw.
I'm at Jason Standing on TV.
MJ, you let these guys talk over you, bro.
No, because the layout's different.
I know,
on my
yeah,
screen.
yeah.
So you're pointing
Yeah,
to
yeah.
nobody,
I'm
but
pointing
you can
at
follow
no one.
me.
Yeah,
You can follow me at MJ, all
Thank
platforms.
you. Follow all of us. We're or at least 4 out of 5 of us
Right
on Spot are
now.
Asian right now, so we deserve your
true.
we deserve
Get us while we're
your
hot.
listen. That's right. We gotta hey, when's hashtag Asian gonna be trending
We're
again,
gonna-
baby? We're gonna be leading that charge.
I'm gonna start tagging
Yeah,
everything.
that's right.
Asian.
Uh,
Make it come back.
keep an eye out for that bonus episode in December. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.